Speaker Mike Johnson. First of all, the news, they're all kind of saying the same thing about this. So welcome to Doug in Exile. I would say the second, third most important political seat in America right now is Speaker of the House. Will Mike Johnson get it?
Johnson basically has no margin for error here.
No surprise here. Speaker Mike Johnson has virtually no margin for error to retain the gavel.
It's a numbers game. We have the smallest margin in U.S. history. We'll have a margin of probably 2 votes tomorrow during that, so can only afford to lose 1 or 2.
And the fact is we have a very small margin in the House. And there is no room for error here. There's no room for egos.
Of reckoning for Speaker Mike Johnson, the margin he's going to have is a wafer-thin one. It's 219 to 215.
Did you hear the news? The margin is very thin. I pulled from like 5 different news sources right there. It's not obvious to you. I'm rooting for him. I hope he wins. But really, I don't care so long as some Republican wins. Love you, Mike Johnson, rooting for you. But if they could get Jim Jordan, sure. If they could get Thomas Massie, okay, let's all go with that. There's no sign that anyone else is getting, they released a poll on the Poly market yesterday on who's ahead, who's most likely to be Speaker of the House. It was like 95% Mike Johnson's going to win this thing. We just don't know how the numbers are going to work because they're so stacked against him.
This is a historic vote, and it is the first order of business that we have to accomplish before we can even swear in as members of Congress. Now, here's how I feel about it. You all have seen me disagree with Mike Johnson at times. You've seen me fight against him at times. But you want to know something else? Here's what I recognize. For the past 4 years, all of you, and myself included, have put blood, sweat, and tears into electing President Trump. And when you want to talk about blood, President Trump himself actually was the one that shed blood after an assassin shot him in the face. Here's what I know. All of you are sick and tired and fed up out of the drama and all of the garbage that comes out of Washington, D.C.
If he gets a second defection voting for someone else, he cannot get elected, and he already has one hard no. That is Congressman Tom Massie, the Kentucky Republican who's very firmly against Johnson, spent some of the holidays arguing with people on X, making his case against Johnson.
Okay, Mike Johnson's major potential headache. It's the smallest majority at the start of a first session over 100 years, because keep in mind, a lot of people will try and say, okay, back in 1931, but keep in mind the first session then didn't start actually until I think December, and there were a ton of vacancies. So I actually went further back into the record books and said, okay, when the first section actually started, and this is the smallest since at least 1917, if not further back, because we got 219 for the Republicans, because Matt Gaetz says he's not joining this Congress, and 215 for the Democrats likely tomorrow. We're talking about, it's pretty tight. It's pretty gosh darn tight. We're talking about a difference of, get this, just 4 seats between Republicans and Democrats, virtually no margin for error.
Okay, so he just mentioned, we'd have one more vote if Matt Gaetz stayed in the game. Thanks, Matt Gaetz. He gone. Matt Gaetz is the one who vacated Kevin McCarthy and wouldn't vote for him, and is the one who basically got Mike Johnson put in that office. And then Matt Gaetz is not there to vote and help his buddy. So Matt Gaetz left him hanging. And by the way, his brand new show has started.
He's great. Matt Gaetz.
We'll cover that in another video.
Tonight on the Matt Gaetz Show, the battle for the gavel is heating up with a group of GOP holdouts putting a snag in Speaker Mike Johnson's plans.
The Matt Gaetz Show is here. He's basically going to go into entertainment and probably stay out of politics.
All right, GOP reps can sink Johnson's Speaker's bid, if on a given ballot at least. This is scenario number 1. Scenario number 1 is if 2 Republicans vote against him, of course, assuming 434 voted Dems, no Dems vote for Johnson. Or scenario number 2, 1 Republican votes against him, votes against Johnson, and 2 abstain, i.e. vote present. So it's either 2 or 3, the most likely scenarios of Republicans that can sink Mike Johnson. And at this particular point, either of these ones look like a real possibility.
One hard no, and if two people vote present. So that's a way that a Republican can show up and kind of gum up the works and just go, hey, it wasn't my fault. I just voted present. The other thing that can change those numbers is if not enough Democrats or Republicans actually show up to the entire House of Congress, which is not very likely. It's pretty much all of them are going to show up because this is a brand new political year. Vacation's over.
And after 4 years of unbelievably horrific government policies, and now that we're in $36 trillion in debt, all of you at home, and myself included, are ready for the drama to end. Well, here's what I'm asking my colleagues to do. Let's put aside our pride, let's put aside our egos, and let's put aside the infighting. It's time to come together as Republicans, and it's time to do whatever it takes to make sure that we deliver the mandate that the American people told us to do. And that's why I'm excited tomorrow. I cannot wait to get started. I'll be voting for Mike Johnson. I will be looking ahead in complete hopefulness and working as hard as possible.
But remember, there have been hospital problems where people went into the hospital and so they weren't able to vote. They can't be there. If one person gets in an accident going on the way to the White House, if it's a Democrat, that would open up one more vote. That might be all it takes. Heaven forbid.
Now, Johnson is touting Trump's endorsement. He's all in on this, and he's making the case for why he needs to get elected Speaker tomorrow.
House Speaker Mike Johnson meeting with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. They apparently mapped out their strategy ahead of tomorrow's speakership.
The things that we're talking about this morning are an illustration that we live in very serious times. We cannot afford any palace drama here. We have got to get the Congress started, which begins tomorrow, and we have to get immediately to work. We have to certify the election of President Donald J. Trump.
This is going to be a weighing of Trump's influence on Congress. How much say does he have? He came out and resoundingly endorsed Mike Johnson, said, Mike Johnson is the man for the job, let's go. Now, Steve Bannon said Trump is only for Mike Johnson until he's no longer for Mike Johnson. So he's kind of saying, Trump says things. Trump can't give specifics why Mike Johnson is the man for the job. It was very general, the kinds of compliments he gave to him. He said he was a man, a serious and religious man, 2 Corinthians. And it really kind of sounded like a generic endorsement. Like, look, let's just get this done because Trump's going like, I want to be president. Can we just get the Speaker of the House so you guys can conduct the order of business and we can just go?
You see, we're going to elect a speaker, and then we're going to swear in as members of Congress. And then on Monday, we're going to certify the most historic election in our nation's history when we certify Donald John Trump's election as 47th President of the United States. We're going to spend a few weeks getting to work, working hard on preparing for his agenda. And then on January 20th, we're going to inaugurate Donald John Trump as the 47th President of the United States. Now, it's 18 long days until we get to that important day. And while all of us are praying and many of us are scared after what we've seen, and many of us are unsure if we'll be even able to get there and see President Trump go back in the White House, I'm going to tell you this. I'm giving it my all, and I can't wait to get started tomorrow.
Can we just let President Trump be inaugurated on the 20th?
But I think we'll get it done. We're shifting into a brand new paradigm. We have unified government that begins tomorrow. We have the White House, the Senate, and the House, a totally different situation than we dealt with over the last 14 months since I've been Speaker.
But they all have narrow majority, so what can they do? And there's another thing that goes on that kind of bugs me, and this has happened in the past, is some of the votes, they won't give their vote, right? Because they want someone in Congress, whoever wins the Speaker of the House, to guarantee them a seat on one of these juicy committees, some intelligence or some oversight committee. They all have a preferred seat. Thomas Massey might have a preferred seat. So they hold out, and then they offer them that job, and then they get it. Is the biggest holdout gets the most goodies out of this drama. And that's scummy.
All right, Todd. Chip Roy was on this program, and he said, well, he doesn't believe Johnson has the votes. How do you think this plays out?
You know, that contradicts with what Corey Lewandowski said on my program a few days ago. Basically, it seems to me the information coming from Mar-a-Lago, from the Trump team, is that Johnson's going to get it. And I think that's part and parcel of why Donald Trump issued that endorsement of Johnson. Yeah, you hear somebody like Chip Roy say the other. I think at the end of the day, Trump's pressure and, quite frankly, Elon Musk pressure to financially primary these individuals who say no to Mike Johnson.
So Chip Roy says he doesn't have the votes. That's easy. That's easy for me to say, too. Easy guess. Just look out in there and go, hey, Thomas Massie said, no, he doesn't have the votes. That's all Chip Roy's doing. He's throwing in his pressure to get other people to peel off because I don't know if he may not like Trump. I don't know if Chip Roy is against Mike Johnson the way that Thomas Massie is definitely against Mike Johnson, or if Chip Roy is against Trump because Trump came out and just berated Chip Roy late last year and started making fun of him on Twitter. So this may be how Chip Roy gets back at Trump by throwing shade on voting for Mike Johnson. Look, guys, this is America, okay? The people are suffering. The people need Congress to work. Vote for Mike Johnson and quit screwing around. That's my message to Thomas Massie. I am going to send him a tweet because I follow him on Twitter and say, buddy, love you, respect you. I hope you'll think again about Mike Johnson. And by the way, if these people don't vote for Mike Johnson, they very well could get Elon's billions of dollars funding an opponent, could be in 2026, to take their seat. So we're going to be taking names and remembering who did what.
I think that could be the ultimate game changer. And if not, the people voted for Republicans in charge of the House, Senate, and the presidency. If that gets delayed by a few weeks, it's really going to hurt them getting that agenda as soon as possible, starting on January 20th. And I don't think that's what the nation voted for or what we want.
That kind of peer pressure doesn't work on a senator. Their job, we have a divided government on purpose. We have co-ex branches. They're there to challenge each other. You can't go to the other person and just go, hey, get on board. This is what the people voted for. Their job is to allow them a robust place of dissent and debate. I also I can't be a free speech advocate and then be all about pressuring them all just to conform or you're in trouble, right? We have to make arguments. This is why you have to do Mike Johnson.
But there are a few rogue people. You have your Thomas Massies of the world who said, I respect the president, I voted for the president, but I don't want Speaker Johnson to be speaker. Well, who then? And that comes back to that, who is the alternative? And I haven't heard that name that can get the 218 votes.
And if you haven't heard a name that can get 218 votes, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I'll be shocked if it's not Mike Johnson. There's no one who's even close yet. Now, maybe after he loses, like Kevin McCarthy, 8 votes in a row, then you start going, well, how about Margie Taylor Greene? By the way, they don't have to be a sitting senator. They can have anyone. That's why Margie Taylor Greene was saying Donald Trump. People have joked Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. Why not just give it to Elon Musk? If he paid me $1 billion, I'd vote for him.
They need the House Speaker to certify the Donald Trump election win on January the 6th. No one seems to know the answer. If we don't have a speaker, what happens next?
President Chuck Grassley. If everything sort of goes along that line and you sort of go through we call it in the law, I can't say it because I forgot because I haven't practiced law in 20 years. Table of consanguinity, I think that's what it is. Chuck Grassley is the guy who ultimately becomes president.
Right.
So, I mean, look, he's a fine guy. He's done a lot for our country, but I don't even think Chuck Grassley wants to be president.
So that's our deep bench. If we cannot inaugurate someone, then the most senior member gets the job, and that would be Chuck Grassley. That wouldn't be bad. I love that guy. That's not what the people voted for.
The GOP is playing with fire if they remove Speaker Johnson.
Look, it's on par with the removal of Kevin McCarthy in 2023. It's idiotic. It does not serve an actual purpose except for that of one or a handful of people, because of personal petty grievances. At the end of the day, the American people elected us to serve as a House Republican majority along with a Senate Republican majority.
So I hope Mike Johnson goes through. I think he will. We're going to find out, what did the people, by the way, all of the congressmen are going to be watching you guys as this vote goes through. They're going to, if you flat out have a giant backlash against someone in the constituents of Chip Roy or Thomas Massie or whoever, and there's going to be a lot of people going, yay, don't vote for Mike Johnson. People who vote for Mike Johnson, they're going to be targeted on Twitter also. So both sides are going to weigh in. I think you guys should weigh in the chat below on what you think. Get the chatter going up on the internet, guys, for or against him. Are you for him or against him? We're going to find out together, and it's going to be an exciting day in politics.
All right. We'll see you there.
If you guys like this video, check out this one right here. Click on it right now for more news entertainment right here on Doug in Exile.